Well, today we have a very exciting guest with us. I'm very glad to welcome Prekshi. Prekshi is an ex-student of ours. Prekshi, if you can join us. Prekshi's, she's graduated from the University of Bristol, and she's currently working as a data protection lawyer in Germany, and I find that very intriguing. Hi, Prekshi. Welcome to Globetrotting Conversations. I hope you're doing great there.
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Well, I'm very pleased to be here, and I would also like to thank all the viewers for joining this webinar. And yeah, nice to be here. Hope you're doing well.
Amazing. I am indeed, and great to have you here. So I mean, at the onset, I think I would really like to know what you're currently doing because data protection law. I know that we live in this information age where everybody's talking about data. Everybody's trying to get ahead in terms of understanding data and how it gets used by companies. So you're in this exciting space. Tell us more about what you do.
Sure. So I work as a data protection lawyer in Germany. I'm working in a company called First Privacy. As you just mentioned, data is, a very interesting and it's an evolving field. So how I initially got into this was, well, I graduated from uni last year, so I've only been working with data protection for about a year. How I initially got into it was I interned in a company, and in that company, I was working on a data protection case that came up. I used to work with a colleague there. She went on a sick leave for a month, and when she went on a sick leave, there was something dodgy or shady going on. So she was under review process. And during the review, she had some interviews and so on with the HR, and there was some sort of investigations going on, and the company found out that she shared some sensitive and important data of the company with her boyfriend via her company emails. So that's how I got into it, and that was the time when GDPR was actually being implemented, or it was in the stages of coming into force. Data was everywhere. So that's how I got into this. What I do at the moment is I work for some of the world's largest clients. So I work for beer manufacturing companies and pharmaceutical companies and so on. I review all of their processes that involve data. So that could mean, for example, you signing up for a newsletter, or you commenting on one of their Facebook posts, or you working for them. So yeah. So what I do every day is really just to evaluate data protection sides of all of these everyday things that every company does. Data protection is pretty interesting because data is, monopoly. If you look at the largest companies in the world, you come up with Apple, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, and they're all data-based. So it is something which is evolving, and it is something which is important and is part of our everyday lives. But you don't really realize how much your data is worth until you really get into it. So that's what I do on a daily basis.
Wonderful. That sounds pretty exciting. So it seems from your story, it seems that this was kind of an accidental pursuit for you. I mean, you didn't really have concrete plans of getting into data. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So my next question is that what else would you have considered? I mean, what else was on your plate? Was it corporate law, or were you also looking at litigation or other such domains? Right? What kind of work domains were you looking at?
Indeed. So when I was at university, I sort of had, well, my main focus was on corporate. I also wrote a thesis in my final year on tax avoidance. So I was looking into, out of everything, my most interest was in corporate, but that was solely based on what I studied. So that was coming from an academic side. But of course, at university, I couldn't be sure exactly 100% what I want to get into. So I did all sorts of internships to find out exactly where my interest lies. So I sort of interned, from corporate side. I worked in contract team, debt and finance, acquisitions, and so on. I also went to courts as a mini pupil to see if litigation is something that fits me, and I participated in mooting competitions and so on. I also interned at United Nations and World Trade Organization to see if human rights side and more governmental side is something that could suit me more. So indeed, data protection was not, the key thing on my plate. So I did kind of get into it through these experiences. But I think that it is important for you to have these experiences because they tell you what you really want to do. It's pretty hard to decide for yourself what you want to practice and so on, just based on what you study.
Any budding lawyers who are listening in, I think the word of advice that Prekshi has is that try and sort of expand, look at the entire horizon of opportunities, and try and gain some experience across, and maybe you'll find that one of them is your calling. Very great words of wisdom there. Well, Prekshi, I'm going to quickly sort of pause and ask you, since you mentioned the WTO and the UN, United Nations. Could you maybe tell us about what kind of engagement you had with them, what kind of project or engagement you were working with them on?
Sure. So, well, the first international organization I went to was in December 2017. It was World Trade Organization. So I would start with that, and because United Nations kind of follows up from the story.
All right.
So I was selected as one of the 4 students out of whole Europe, out of 375 universities or something.
Wow. Okay. So you had to apply. Was that an application process which they reviewed and selected you based on?
Yeah. So I applied through this association, and it's called European Law Students Association.
Right.
There's an application procedure. You sort of write lots of cover letter types of answers to the questions and why you're interested and so on, and then they select you on that basis.
Right.
So the competition is pretty hard, I would say, because out of 375 universities, being one of the 4 students to go there, it was a great honor for me to even get that position. So I was selected to represent them as a delegate to 11th Ministerial World Trade Organization Conference, and it was taking place in Argentina.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this experience is in Argentina. So what I essentially had to do there was attend meetings, and there's usually an agenda set for the day. So what happens in these meetings is that there's one trade minister from every country. So at the time from UK, it was Liam Fox MP. I'm not sure who it was from India, but I can only speak from UK because that's where I went from.
Okay.
So usually when you go to these meetings, you have key meetings on the agenda, and then you have certain side events. Right. So the idea is for you to attend those meetings, and at the end of the day, after every meeting, you sort of write your own report, what you learned, what took place during the day, and your 10 side events to actually, just talk about trade law and to talk about trade agreements between the countries and what's going on around the world. So that's what I did. I connected with trade ministers from around the world. So as I just mentioned, I met Liam Fox, MP. He's Member of Parliament of UK. He's a trade minister. Then I met trade ministers from Netherlands and from Curacao. And good thing is that, sometimes you just meet people who stay as your connection throughout your life. So even till today, I'm in touch with some of the leaders that I met there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Anybody listening in, if you want work done on trade, Prekshi is the one to get hold of. Okay, on a more serious note, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you. Continue. You were talking about WTO, and then you also said this sort of built towards your internship experience with the United Nations.
So what happens in these organizations is that, the exposure that you can't get it at any stage, because you're there stood next to the leaders, and they're quite old. They're like around, 50s, 60s, or the fact is that they're quite high up in their career, and just for you to apply for such opportunities and at a young age be next to them, it's a big deal, and there's a lot you can learn from there. So you're a part of the decision-making body at an international level, and that itself signifies it signifies the position that you have and what you're doing there. So my WTO experience was really, really great, and I connected with great many leaders, and I'm still in touch with them. So after this, I really wanted to work in international organizations, but the primary reason for that is you're actually a part of decision making.
Yep.
Body. Usually, as lawyers, you work behind the scenes. So the law has already been made. Authorities make the decision, and then you apply that decision or the law for your companies or for your clients you work for. However, being on the other side of the table, it's really different. You're the one deciding on what every other company is now going to have to do in the future, or the country. You're making the law. So I really wanted to sort of work in international organizations after that, and given the exposure that I saw there. So following this, I again applied through the same association for United Nations. And I interned there, and I went there to Geneva, headquarters of UN. And I was selected for the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So I was, a part of decision-making body again. And my key country focus was Argentina, Mali, and Germany. And I did meet great many people there too. So for example, I met this journalist from Yemen. I'm not sure if you're aware of the war that's going on in Yemen at the moment. It's a humanity crisis. It's crazy. So I met a journalist there who was actually kidnapped, or he was in solitary confinement for 6 months by the terrorists. I think they're called Houthis.
Yeah, the Houthis, yes. Houthi rebels, yeah.
So they captured him in Yemen, and after 6 months or something, he managed to escape. And the reason why they captured him was because in Yemen, not many people speak English, and his English was really good. He spoke American English, but that's primarily because he studied in America or something like that, and they thought that he's spying. So,
oh God.
Yeah, his life was at stake, and there were scars on his body, and he was just there in the Human Rights Conference to bring this topic forward. This is like 2 years ago. And I'm surprised that, I was there when this was not everywhere. The news about Yemen was not everywhere, but the crisis existed. Now it's everywhere. So now that I look back at that experience, it's crazy who you can meet and how you can meet and what you can be part of, and who you can be connection with for the rest of your life. So
absolutely. I think some of these, roles that you're mentioning could have impact which is completely unparalleled, right? You could sort of touch the lives of millions of people. You could impact the future of many individuals and companies at stake. So, all this sounds so interesting. So when did you decide that this wasn't something that you'd want to do?
Actually, it's not something I didn't want to do. I think if I get the opportunity, I might consider it. So it's not off the table.
Okay.
It's really interesting. It's a diplomatic power that you have in WTO and UN, and the benefits that you get with job there, it's, you can't compare. It's just a different world. So it's still on my table.
The life of a diplomat. Everybody's yearning for that. Nande. Okay. That sounded interesting enough. I think growing up, a lot of us do look up to some of these organizations like UN, UNICEF, and I think there is always this consideration of how do I get there. So I think what you're trying to tell us is, one way of joining these organizations is probably a study in law, and then progress towards gain some experience, obviously, and get there. All right. Let me backtrack a little more. Probably, so you studied at Bristol, but Prekshi, you're also a student of ours. You've I know for a fact that you were preparing at one point in time very, very seriously for the national law universities back in India. So help me understand why you applied to the US, to the UK, and what was the thinking behind this, right? Because clearly you were also looking at options in India, and then at the same time you were looking to apply in UK. So tell me why you did both, and maybe give us an insight into your thinking process.
Indeed, sure. So, as you correctly mentioned, I was looking for India and UK, but when I was applying for CLAT exams or not applying, preparing for it, the good universities in India, or at least the known ones, are quite a few. They're just a handful. And unless you're there, at least from a student's perspective, I don't know what it would have been like if I was a student, in any of the NMUs. I can't speak to that. But when you are in your 12th class and you're applying for it, you want to be in the best, because to you it seems like the career prospects in the future would be the best if you're in the best university, which is, for example, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Delhi, I suppose. However, I didn't just want to give my career to just these few options and that's that. I wanted to have a backup option. And UK is pretty known for example, studying law and humanity units as a whole. So arts, basically, I wouldn't say that it's the best country to go to for engineering. I think US is quite known for that, but when it comes to UK, its strength is the art field, or at least that's what its economy mostly works from. So UK was always, one of the good options to look at in terms of applying for law.
Right.
So out of all the universities that I got into, the best one was Bristol. So that's the reason why I chose to go with Bristol.
So you must have gone through the UCAS, the common application that all these universities have. Could you tell us which universities you did apply to? And I mean, sure, Bristol was where you got in, but where else did you apply to?
So I applied to Oxford. I think I applied before 20th of October. That's what their deadline was.
That's right.
I applied to UCL, to Bristol, to Glasgow, and to Nottingham.
To Nottingham. Okay, interesting. I think a lot of viewers are presently in the boat that you were in, maybe some time ago. So and I know for a fact that some of the people attending are looking to write the LNAT, are looking to complete their UCAS application. So any tips for for all these aspirants? How do you think they should be approaching the LNAT prep? How did you approach the same? And I mean, you could start with that.
Sure. I think one thing that helped me a lot, or at least provided me with the basis, was the training that I was already getting for CLAT. So that was enough to provide a foundation for this, because at the end of the day, the idea behind examining students who might be interested in law, or the law exams, they're kind of structured the same way, or they look for the same thing. However, I think LNAT is sort of different from CLAT. LNAT won't have mathematics questions. It won't have logical questions. It's quite articulate. It sort of assesses how you infer, for example, a paragraph, or what you make out of it. I think it has two sections. The first is an MCQ, and right. MCQ is more like English part of the CLAT. I can't completely recall, but something like that. And the second part is the essay.
English
so one thing I would say for LNAT.
Sorry, English and reasoning. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So for English and reasoning, I would say that don't take your thinking or mind too far. The answer would be right in front of you. I would say that keep your thinking. Well, I'm not saying don't use your brain too much. Of course, use it, but don't take it too far. So for example, if it says water is blue, then water is blue. Don't make it pink.
All right.
I think you have to pretty simple. You have to be logical, especially with the essay part. I mean, like, I don't exactly remember how I did LNAT prep or LNAT. It was 5 years ago. I'm so sorry. But I can tell you what the examiners expect from you. So what
Absolutely.
people assessing would expect from you. One thing that they really like, especially in essay, is for you not to, I don't know, write a thesis. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I'm not for students applying to UK. I'm not sure if you know about this, but in the UK, the tier for visa there has there have been some adjustments. So, for example, if you apply to UK after next year, you get 2 years after your study visa to look for employment. So, for example, if someone asks you to write an essay on that, you don't start by describing what student visa is, what this tier 4 visa is, what does the extension mean for people, and so on. What you really need to come to is the crux. So just come straight to the point. So if you're writing an essay on that, just write the UK government declared this and this is what's going to happen.
Right.
You don't start describing what tier 4 visa is, what the government is, what the government can do, and then come to the point.
All right. So you're saying don't spend a lot of time on this on the scope or the context. Come straight to your opinion and what you think would be the possible outcome or your arguments, if I may say that. Get right to the point.
Indeed, I think there's a sort of trick to get to that. It's taught in law schools. I'm not sure if it's also taught in India. There's this thing called IRAC. That's the method we use to write all essays. So
Okay.
IRAC stands for the first I stands for issue. So you describe what the issue and the problem is.
Right.
That should be your first paragraph. Second is the rule. So rule is usually the law. So for example, if the issue is someone committed a murder, on rule you come with section of the law defines murder. Then the third part is applicability. So you apply that rule to the issue. So you discuss that in the third step, and then you come to the C, which is the conclusion. Then you give your, conclusive argument. So I suppose that if you try to follow this IRAC style, even in your LNAT, you have a pretty good shot of getting ahead.
Okay, that sounds like something words of advice that I'm sure our students and our viewers can definitely use. Okay, this was great. What do you think? I'm getting a lot of questions on this, on and off. In fact, we also got this as a query from one of the students, and the question was something like, so when you apply to an Oxford or to any university for that matter in the UK, what is it that is really looked at in the application? What really favorably sort of inclines the admissions committee to select you? Is it obviously there is one factor, the LNAT score, and there's this huge debate on what makes for a good LNAT score, especially if it's Oxford or Cambridge that you're applying for. But besides the good LNAT score, what else could help in making a strong application according to you?
Sure. I think a good LNAT score is 23 and plus. I think Oxford accepts 24 and plus, but if you have 23, I think almost every university should be accepting you. Apart from that, what really matters is, of course, in your letter of motivation, you write how badly you want to be a lawyer or how badly you want to study law. But I think you need to sort of provide evidence for your interest. So how I did it was, yeah, I was interested in law, but I backed it up with the debating competitions I participated in, the debating competitions I won, and all of the extracurricular activities that I did. I think just the fact that you're into extracurricular activities such as debating competitions, MUNs in school and so on, you're doing those activities, but there are your other colleagues or other students who are not doing that, but you're taking the effort of doing this. So make it count. It's worth something. Just put it in the application, whatever you do. It doesn't matter what you play, football, you play cricket, Doesn't matter what you do, put it all in application. So I think what they're looking for is not just your interest in law and how much you can sit in library and how long you can study for in the library, but what they're looking for is you as an overall person. Are you good at, managing your time? So if you tell them, for example, you play football every day, they'll see you're a student, you're studying, you're preparing for LNAT, and you're going up to play. So what they can tell from this is that you have good time management skills. And I think things like this, try to sell your skills, but evidence them. Put something in them. If you're saying you're interested in law, then put that you are taking LNAT coaching. You're doing something extra. So I think this is one thing that they would look at, universities, but this is also something that companies look at when they recruit you. So I think it's a long-term thing, and the earlier you sort of realize how you have to evidence or sell yourself, the better it is long-term.
Right, right. I'm sure those words of advice will be useful. In fact, a lot of our students do indeed, especially the ones who are looking very seriously at law. They tend to do these, MUNs and mooting. I'm sure as much exposure that I think this is really picked up, especially in India and in our part of the world. I think it's really picked up, and I think all schools have a lot of involvement around it. So if you're somebody who's listening in, start doing more of that in grades 11 and 12. And, so at least that should help. Anything else that you think in terms of, let's say, extracurriculars or even internships? Do you think they expect you to have gone out and engaged with the legal domain, or is it simply an interest, maybe a spectator interest that you need to show? Which of these? What's your perspective on that?
Sure. I think if you can get internship before going to university in legal sector, I don't know, you've got your hands on gold. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that if they expect you to do that. It's too much to expect students to do. Right. And at least when I joined, I don't. There were a few people who had interned before, but that was because they had connections. Correct. So as a student, if you really apply for an internship, you're up against current law students or even graduates. So it might not be the easiest, but if you can, that would be brilliant, like super brilliant. But it's not something that they would expect.
I think it could also be an acid test of, is this feel really interesting? What kind of work happens? Let me go and experience the action at at the workplace, maybe with a lawyer. So I thought, if you're interested, you go ahead and try that, and if you like it, then you put it on your application, and that also helps. Okay. I think a lot of students also have this, this question. In fact, Arnav has asked me this question, sent it across, so I'm going to post it to you.
If you can do it, that's...
Sorry, could you repeat that, Prekshi? Are you able to hear me, Prekshi?
Are you still there? I think you're hung up on my screen.
No, I can hear you. Okay. So the video is still running, so we're still live. I think maybe the video is sort of frozen at your end. But my question was, so if somebody is looking to pursue law in India, do an undergrad. In India, at least the prevalent sort of format is a 5-year, BA LLB or a BBA or a BCom LLB. So once somebody has completed, an undergrad degree in India, how good are the prospects for, masters in let's say UK or Europe? And do you think that makes sense after 5 years of studies to again invest a year or so for masters? And does that help? Does that help you find jobs? Does that add an extra sort of jewel in your resume and your credentials? Your views on that?
Sure. I think I'm going to divide this into 2 parts. One is you doing masters and going back to India and prospects then, and one doing masters and you planning to stay here. Right. I think I might start with you do bachelor's in India, you do masters abroad, and you want to stay, for example, in the UK.
Okay.
So masters is usually 1 year.
Right.
Masters is quite demanding, I would say, more than bachelor's.
Right.
It's called masters for a reason. It requires you to really master a field of your interest.
Absolutely.
So the amount of time and the effort that you'll have to put into masters would certainly be more than in any of the year you're going to do in bachelor degree. But the problem here is that master's is only 1 year, and that leaves you with very little time to gain experience in, for example, UK alongside your work. Um, it took me 4 years in the UK to study and get all sort of work experiences and work alongside studying to even, to have a hope that I can get a job. The job market is pretty tight because you're up against their local students, you're up against all graduates. You might even be up against paralegals who are already working, but they're also looking to be lawyers at the end of the day. So I wouldn't say that it's that easy. And I think with masters, it's an investment, but it could be a little bit of more risk because you only have 1 year to pull everything through. And if you compare that 1 year of effort with the 3 years of effort that people already go through, I think it's I don't know.
So are you saying that if you're thinking about whether to do undergrad or postgrad, then you're saying it's probably a better idea if you have both on the plate to think of undergrad in UK, because that probably brings greater chances of success. Is that what you're saying?
From my perspective, yes, because I don't think if I did 1 year of master's here, I would have got a job. But this is just my personal experience. I mean, like I was in the UK for 4 years. I studied and I worked in more than 20 to 25 companies, or I did more than 20 to 25 jobs alongside my university. But I
Right.
had the time to do that.
Right.
Master, you need time. You need to buy time because you can't do everything in 1 year, and masters would not buy you that time.
But then, but
Um,
then, but then now with the new visa regime, wouldn't a master student have the next 2 years to sort of settle in, do some internships, gain some experience, and then settle into a job or gravitate towards one at least? No?
Indeed, I think this would definitely change things, but I can't say because I'm not there.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
I think these 2 years, they would 100% buy time. So this is an option that you can look for, but it doesn't change anything about the job market because as far as I can tell, it's still going to be as competitive as it is. But indeed, it will buy you time. The thing about that is I don't know if you're ready to pay extra for 1 years of masters and then you're ready to also invest in 2 years of staying there, those 3 years you can do those 3 years in bachelor's.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you actually need a master's to get a job because most of the students in the UK that actually get jobs in top law firms, they get it when they're studying.
Okay.
So they get it even before they graduate. So masters is not a must, or at least from UK side. Students who really want to be academics and they're really interested into academia, usually in the UK, they're the ones who go on to apply to do masters.
Got it.
People
Got
who
it.
want to work straight into company, they usually get their jobs when they're doing their bachelor's, or they just start working and start building up their experiences so that they can get the jobs long term. But I think as an international student, masters can sort of give you an entrance though to the country, to the job legal market. Um, so it's different.
I know it's
But
different because I think there's also this other perspective uh, that it's too early. Bachelor's is too early to go and be. I mean, I meet a lot of parents day in and day out, and the usual sort of reservation that parents have is that is my child really mature enough to go settle down in a foreign land, completely new environment, and manage to not be distracted and be and manage everything else, and this is the big dilemma. And so most people, I mean, at least a parent's perspective on this is that it's probably less of a risk to let the child be by himself or herself after graduate. I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but I'm just saying that this seems to be a stereotype of sorts. But then if that is the case, then masters would probably be a good way of entering that country, entering into the job market, and maybe get a foothold.
Yeah, I think with the parents part, you're right. My parents were like that too, and my mother was crazy. I'm sorry if she's hearing this, but oh my
I
God.
certainly hope she is.
I'll find that out after this call, but yeah, she had that fear too that I'm going to do I don't know, be an alcoholic, be a druggist or whatever, and that's crazy. I think the fact that I went to UK on my own and I was 18, I started working at the age of 18. I started handling my own finances on my own. It made me independent. I mean, like, do you really, from my side, you have to show some faith in your child, because it's not always the wrong direction. I mean, like, on the same note, if as much as you want to show your faith in the child should appreciate what your parents are sacrificing and what they're doing for you. So I think it's a two-way street, and as long as you're on the same path, on the same road, with that understanding, it works. Um,
Very
Being
beautiful.
independent at an early stage, it really helps a lot because the skills that I gained when I was 18, you might be 26 in India and you might not be able to do that because
Right.
you're too reliant on your parents. You don't have that independence. You don't develop that, independent thinking. And there's a lot, I don't know, there are a lot of factors that actually help you when you leave your home early on and you're independent early. At least in long run it helps, but if you think that you want to wait for your child to be mature and then you want to send them to UK, that's your decision, but I
It's
don't
not a
know.
one-way street. It doesn't always work in the same way. And I think you put it beautifully when you said that it's a two-way street, and faith and trust sort of work both ways. So I think we let it rest at that. But something interesting that you did talk about, and I'm going to link it to this question of mine. So, what was the biggest challenge for you when you're a student, you're an 18-year-old student who's entering a foreign land, a new country, and so what was the biggest challenge for you when you went to study at Bristol?
Finances. I think if you're looking for doing any degree in UK and US, you're going to spend a lot of money, and your parents are going to spend a lot of money. And I came from a middle class background, so I wasn't that well backed off. So before I went to uni, I kind of knew that I had to work there on my own, at least to fund my food or living expenses there
Right.
alone. And along the way, things weren't that financially stable at home. So I couldn't expect my parents to pay for everything. So one challenge that I faced was that when I left India, I didn't have any part-time jobs, or I didn't really have internships, because there's no culture in India that a 16-year-old child goes to McDonald's and flips burgers. So I, at the start, during my first month there, I did this sort of internship, not an internship, it was like volunteering experience at a charity shop. I was a cashier, and then after that, I started getting all sorts of part-time jobs, and I started earning. So I was financially independent and stable, but it was really hard to balance that with studying. A lot of sacrifice. I didn't really live a student life. It's not, as gloomy as you think it is, unless your parents are rich, then you're really, really lucky. But if you're not, then you have to be ready to face that road of sacrificing on certain things, but they pay off. They certainly pay off. I mean, like, if it wasn't for all the work that I did, all those part-time jobs I did, I wouldn't be a lawyer at the age of 23.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think
Have all of these experiences, so your hard work, it doesn't matter at what stage of your life you do it, the earlier you do it, the better it is. For example, I did my hard work between the age of 18 to 22. I think it's better I do it then rather than doing it when I'm 35 to 40. And it pays off. So it gave me a good foundation for my career, and I hope it's going to, build up for the better. But it certainly pays off. But yeah, working alongside university was pretty hard.
Um, Tell us something about UK that we don't already know, because I know there's so much we follow in the news. There's so much to read about Brexit and all the announcements that come out of UK. But you spent a couple of 3 years there, 4 years there. Uh, Tell us something about UK that we don't already know. Something that only a student or a resident would know.
And there's a lot to tell. It's a really nice country. I think once you go to UK, you don't want to leave. Which is the sad part because the visas, at least till now, are pretty tight, or still kind of are.
Have
And
you
the job,
traveled? Have you traveled the entire country? Did you manage to look at all
no,
corners?
I was only, I was always only studying, sleeping, or working. So I've only traveled to Bath, Bristol, Cardiff, and London, nowhere else.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Now that I have money, I can. I want to go back to travel the whole country, but I didn't get the opportunity to do that. Um, but yeah, you're going to love UK. I think the culture is really nice. It's friendly. You can make a lot of friends. That's not a problem. I The thing about UK is that especially in law, there wouldn't be too many Indians. Like in my course, there were only two, three. Law field is different from, for example, engineering. If you have an engineering degree, you can work as an engineer anywhere. Engineering is the same. With law, it's difficult because you qualify for a certain country and you study certain countries' law. So your practice area kind of gets limited. So that could be the reason why less Indian students they apply for bachelors in law to UK. I'm not sure, but I didn't have that many Indian people or friends during my uni degree.
So wait, are you saying that if somebody wants to study law in the UK and then wants to come back and practice in India, let's say corporate law or legislation or
I think it's different. I think the Bar Council of India still requires you to pass their test.
Yes, it
Um,
does. Yes, it does. Yes, they do. You'll have to take the bar exam, but I'm not sure how it compares the bar exam in India with that in the UK. But I think in India it's not it's not so
as
difficult to at least it doesn't take as much time or it isn't that hard to clear the bar exam. So at least in India, at least the recognition for an Oxford or a Bristol or a university in the UK, I think these degrees are recognized. So it's not a big deal to sort of come back and start practicing out of here. But are you saying that the other way is going to be harder?
Indeed. So, for example, if I studied in UK, I'm qualified for UK law. For example, I'm right now working in Germany, but I
Right?
can work in data protection field.
Okay.
That's fine. But I can't, for example, at least right now, be a lawyer practicing German tort law or German contract law, or just work freely as a lawyer in Germany. Every country they have their own qualification routes and they have their own different recognition of lawyers. At least in Europe it's pretty strict, but a good thing about coming to Europe to study law is that there's a European regulation. If you qualify as a lawyer in one of the European Union countries, you can you can work as a lawyer in another country. It's recognized. It's a good thing about Europe because your scope is kind of not limited just to UK. It's
Correct.
limited to 28 member states now.
Not UK
27.
anymore. Now 27.
So things would change after Brexit, certainly. But for example, if you go to US, you'll be qualified to work in the US as an American lawyer. You can't just, as a lawyer, move to any other country and start practicing law, just as, for example, engineers can do. It's easy for them to change jobs and countries, but for lawyers, I think it's important that you have in mind the country you apply to. Do you want to stay there long term or short term? If short term, maybe masters is better because masters is not really in the law of country, it's in a particular field. But if you do bachelor's, which bases your legal foundation, so tort law of the country, company law, criminal law, law and state, and so on. And if you, for example, want to be a UK lawyer, the best option would be that you go for bachelor's.
Got it. Got it. I think I think that was one of the questions that was nagging at the back of my head, saying, shouldn't it be easier to sort of study law in Europe and then work across? And you clarified that, so that's great. Well, let's see. I think I'm running out of questions. So anybody who's watching this live, if you have any questions for Prekshi, then please chat away. Please post them in the comments here. If you haven't already, subscribed to our channel, please do so right away. I would really love to get more, to get Prekshi back again sometime soon on a different topic or a different discussion like this. But yeah, are you thinking of a master's degree? Are you thinking of post graduation anytime soon, or what are your future plans?
So, well, post-graduation is not really required if you want to work, and I really enjoy working because, at least if I compare my work life to my student life, right now I'm in heaven. So,
Quite candid of you.
if I do plan to do postgraduate, then I think I would want to be financially stable this time, because I don't want to go back to those 4 years of my life. I think they were pretty hard. But I am thinking that I could do postgraduate, but that would primarily be because I want to specialize in an area of law out of interest. It's nothing for me to get a job or anything. It's just interest.
Okay, understood. We talked about your interest in corporate law, and that's something that you wanted to do. So maybe you could tell us about areas like IPR and patents and copyrights, or any new trends that are coming up, and how you foresee somebody who's at the start, right? Somebody who's thinking of a bachelor's in law. Should they be worrying about what they study at school and how that would? So, I mean, one of the questions I had, I'm sorry, this is turning out to be a bit of a long question, but do you think that having a base in commerce or would be a benefit when it comes to getting into corporate law? Do you think it works that way? And then the connected question is also about, maybe you could tell us a little more about what are the recent trends on IPR, uh, areas like patents and copyrights, and any other fields.
Sure. I think, well, from school, I can tell you what really matters. First of all, it doesn't matter if you do commerce, science, or humanities. I think you'll be assessed, similarly. But of course, it's a benefit if you do commerce because then you have more of commercial mindset, or at least you've done units that are structured that way, as opposed to history, which won't be of much help when you do law. Or you're thinking of being corporate lawyer, but at least for when you apply for jobs later on, they expect you to have really good 12th grades. I was lucky that I have them, but they're pretty useful. So then just not to get into universities right now, they also help long term when you apply for jobs. So definitely do that. Then on the second part about trends, I don't really have any idea about trademark, but I do have an idea about, for example, data protection. And I have a slight idea about where Brexit could be going. So I think these are two topics that I can talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you for bringing that up. That would have been a question on how do you foresee, Brexit and jobs? Because I mean, somebody who's entering the UK now to study, undergrad or postgrad, how do you think the job situation is going to change? Is it going to be better or for the worse?
I think if you're European, little worse, but if you're a third country national like us Indians, it's better. Because yes, I think the UK has, after Brexit, at least for these visas and so on, UK has changed its approach a bit. So the approach that it's changed is that it's made it more skill focused. So if you have skills, they keep you. and you can say you have a shot, but if you can't demonstrate that you have any skills and you're someone who wants to just work in restaurants, that's pretty bad for them because they might send them back. So, for example, there are a lot of European migrants. They work in restaurants and so on, but they're also required by the UK to some extent because they run these businesses. So, I do wonder if they just start kicking people out like that who can't demonstrate skills up to their standards, who's going to run these businesses? Because most of the factories there are Polish workers,
Right.
and in most of the restaurants you'll see people working from Poland, Spain, all sorts of European countries. But I think I should focus more on how it's going to be beneficial for Indians. Um, Under the new immigration law, I think if you want to enter the UK, you're entering it at the best time you can. Because you don't, for example, you do require sponsorship, but the competition won't be as much. If you have a recognized degree, you can speak English. I think if you study in UK, especially if you do bachelor's, you don't even need to do TOEFL for any of the countries. Even if you apply for master's anywhere, you don't need to provide that score. So if you have English, you have a recognized degree, you have a job offer, and the company is ready to sponsor you, you're in. And I think the mark of how much your base salary has to be is pretty low, so it's pretty achievable. So I think that Brexit, at least in terms of employment for third country nationals, it's opening its doors a bit. But with the UK, you can't be certain because every time it has relaxed its immigration laws, it tightens it up as it wishes. So usually after a few years, it makes it tight. So at least, for example, the past 10 years, they've been pretty strict. And I think after 2005 or something, things really changed. Before that, it used to be lenient and now it's lenient again. So you can't be sure when they're going to get strict again, because at the end of the day, they also have to control the number of immigrants that come into the country and stay. UK is relatively pretty small compared to the size of US. So you do have to sort of keep that in mind, that they don't have as many jobs. For example, every law firm, it offers training contracts, and in a year they would only recruit, for example, 20 law students out of the 15,000 law students all across the country that graduate. So that sort of shows you how competitive it is. And before Brexit, what used to be is that, for example, they would only have one sponsorship license for international students. So out of 20 jobs that they would offer, one is for international students. So the competition is harder. But post Brexit, because things are changing, they don't need to sponsor you as they had to before Brexit. So I think that they might alter this. Now you would be assessed as one of the 20, as opposed to one of the one.
Got it. Got it. So basically, Europeans don't get any special preference anymore. So basically, people from India might just get a bigger door to sort of walk through, in a sense.
Indeed. Indeed.
Wow. Okay. That's an insightful point. I think I'm not sure about the other viewers, but I learned something on this webinar from you.
But I think one thing, one more thing I just wanted to add is, like I was saying, you don't know when they might change the immigration law again. So now that if you apply and you're going there next year, that condition, this new rule is going to apply on you. Take this opportunity whilst you can.
Correct.
I mean, like, fair enough if you want to wait for 5 more years to do masters, but no one can guarantee that this rule would still be there. For example, one thing when this rule was passed, what was being criticized is, what about the final year students who will be graduating this year? The rule has passed, but it does not apply to them.
Right.
So you can't really foresee how long they're going to keep this as a law for. Parliament could change this law whenever it wishes and whenever it's passed. So keep that in mind.
So make hay while the sun shines.
Literally.
And it doesn't do so for too long in the UK, doesn't it?
Yeah, no. Not considering the past trends.
Okay, great. Well, this has been an exciting, insightful chat with you. I'd like to think of this as a chat and not as a webinar, because you're one of our own. This was great. Thanks a lot, Prekshi. I don't think I'm getting any other questions. I think you've covered pretty much everything that somebody would be interested in. I will keep you posted. Sorry.
One thing I wanted to mention, if you're like I was saying for LNAT, for essays you need to follow structure and don't write too many fancy words. Keep it super simple and on point. And in case any of the students they want their essays to be commented on or evaluated as practice, they can feel free to send it to me.
That's so sweet of you. I'm sure there'll be some people waiting to take advantage of that. I'll keep your I'll pass your message on to them and yeah, I mean, expect to get a few essays from some very bright students very soon. So thank you for that offer.
And these applications, if they want, I mean, like, it would be my pleasure to help whoever I can. I mean, like, at their stage of career, I think it would be pretty helpful. Or at least I would have really appreciated if someone did that for me.
Absolutely. I'll definitely keep in touch with you. I'll definitely sort of connect. If somebody needs help with the application or with the LNAT, I'm sure I'm going to send across some essays. So that's a very kind offer. Well, I'm not sure. It's getting a little late here. I think it must be evening there. Are you still going to be working? Are you heading back to work, or are you done with your work day? You head back to work.
I do a few things, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry if I've kept you away. I think this sort of stretched on longer. I think this was so much fun. I lost track of time. Well, thank you, Prekshi. This was real fun. And hope to catch you again. Yeah, you have a great day. You have a great week, and stay safe. I think wishes from all of us, the entire Aptitude Globetrotters family, and all the viewers. Are with you. Please, take care of yourself.
You too. Have a nice evening.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.